What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, you read the title. We're doing the running back rankings, the top 50. Well, 26 through 50. The top 25 we have in an earlier video, which you can check in a link in the description box below. Just keep in mind when I'm going through these, we have a lot of players to go over, so I kind of have to gloss over them. I can't go super in depth, but if you have questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. Just keep in mind, these rankings are updating almost every day right now. We're in preseason. This is where things are heating up, so any news blurb, any breakout performance in preseason, they're going to adjust these rankings. So the only way to stay updated is to become a member of our site at thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Link is in the description, and there you can have access to our always updated rankings. But let's get into the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was which tight end had the third most yards after catch per reception. First and second being George Kittle and Evan Engram. Third was actually Vance McDonald. So Vance McDonald with the third most yards after catch per reception on the season. Congratulations, George K. You got this one right. Let's see who can answer correctly today's question, which is actually going to be a quarterback question. And which quarterback threw the most interceptable passes? Okay, so on all the attempts, which quarterback threw the highest amount of passes that could have been intercepted? Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. So to start this list, we have running back 26, Miles Sanders of the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm an Eagles fan myself, and I'm super excited for Miles Sanders. He looks great, and he should be in line for the majority of the work in this offense. But as we know, it's super unclear right now. We still have Jordan Howard, who they did get in an acquisition, and this team themselves, they have always been more of a running back by committee, at least by approach. If he does get the featured reins in this offense, it's a pick that could have top 10 upside, but considering he's going to be getting all of the passing down work, or most of the passing down work, considering that they have Darren Sproles, it's still a pick that should pay off flex value, but at the same time leaves room for upside. So yes, we are high on Miles Sanders, and we do think it is a strong pick where he's going in drafts. Running back 27, Tevin Coleman of the San Francisco 49ers, who is coming in from free agency from the Atlanta Falcons, and it may not seem like a pick that has a ton of upside, and that might be true. It is going to be a committee where you have Matt Breida, Jerick McKinnon, who Jerick McKinnon hasn't really shown himself to be healthy, at least in this part of the offseason, but overall they are going to have three capable backs throughout the season, and Tevin Coleman, some people just don't know where to slot him in. Well, word is they are going to only activate two backs at a time, and Tevin Coleman should be an RB2 in games that he's active, and well, games that he's not active, you will already know to start somebody else. So it's not like you're going to be put in a position where you're going to be starting him and have no idea what type of production you're going to expect. They got really unlucky last season. There's a lot to look forward to heading into this season for the San Francisco 49ers, and they have always been a good rushing team. 28 is James White. Over the last 4 seasons, White has finished as the RB 45, 28, 41, and 8. So there's a lot of fluctuation year over year in his fantasy finishes, but with Michelle banged up, Burkhead also injured, he thrived. This season, there's going to be more competition. Sony Michel and Burkhead are likely to be healthy during the season. They also have Damian Harris, and while there's nobody there to take his third down role away from him, it's very likely his carry totals are going to be closer to 50 than what we saw last season, around 100. Keep in mind though, in the 14 games without Gronk in the lineup, White has seen an extra target per game and a 43% increase in touchdowns per game, and he is a reliable asset that they do trust in the red zone, so we would continue to see that in 2019 100%. 29 is Mark Ingram, and we're not thrilled about this selection, mainly because of his lack in projected use in the receiving game. He also is likely going to lose some touches in the running game due to Justice Hill taking some of the early down work. He should get the majority share of the goal line, but obviously Lamar Jackson will also have his fair share of work in the goal line, taking some touchdowns as well. So for that, it's hard to justify his current ADP, but if he falls, he could become a value, and if any injuries rack up to players other than Ingram, he should be the main beneficiary. Number 30, Austin Eckler. Obviously, the Melvin Gordon news is going to inflate the value of Eckler. It does not seem like they are coming close to a deal at all, at least at this point in the offseason. We're still in early August, though. That could change, but if there's a chance Melvin Gordon holds out until midseason, there is a scenario where Austin Eckler is just an absolute beast for fantasy, so he needs to be drafted in the middle rounds. He still holds value even when Gordon returns, so it's a solid pick all the way around. Number 31, Lamar Miller. Never really an exciting pick, but he has had 5 consecutive seasons over 1,000 total yards and 6 touchdowns, and he also has been relatively healthy. At this point, though, the Texans did sign Duke Johnson, which will basically eliminate any potential upside for his use in the receiving game, and Duke Johnson's also an underrated rusher on the ground, so it really does hurt Miller's upside, but then again, he was never going to be drafted as an upside play to begin with. 32, Latavius Murray, and it's really hard not to love Murray this season. He has the combination of safe floor with high ceiling. He's going to be used in the Mark Ingram role, which is where the floor comes into play, and if anything were to happen to Kamara, knock on wood, he would have the upside of a top 5 fantasy back. Well, let's put it top 10 based on his individual ability, but regardless, he's a good pick, a safe pick in the middle rounds, and somebody you definitely should target. But up next is Phillip Lindsay, who initially seemed like it was a pick that had somewhat of an upside when it was just him and Royce Freeman, but then Theo Riddick was signed by the team, which throws a wrench into everything because Phillip Lindsay was going to be used as more of the passing down specialist. Now with Theo Riddick there, it's really difficult for us to know what's going on with this backfield. What we do know so far in preseason is that they have favored Royce Freeman in the short yardage situations. Phillip Lindsay has been in on clear passing downs. It's still unclear how Theo Riddick will be used in this offense, but it certainly limits both players' upside. Typically, when taking shots on players in the middle to later rounds, you do want to bank on talent, and Phillip Lindsay does have the talent behind him, but it is quite the crowded backfield. RB34 is a player we definitely cooled on, mostly because of the news of Kalen Ballage taking on the first team reps. For that reason, we have to stop taking Drake early in drafts. Drake's obviously the better running back and is much better for fantasy, but as long as the coaching staff is giving carries to 2 players on an offense that's not going to be good, we very well could have a season for Drake which resembles much more of what we saw last season than something that we projected earlier on in the offseason. So for that reason, you should definitely avoid it as current ADP. But on to 35, Matt Breida, and this is a team that has elite coaching. They know how to get the most out of their players. 49ers are going to know how to use Matt Breida. He played through injuries last year and was basically an Iron Man and still performed really well while being highly banged up. It's also a team that has been a strong rushing team for several years now, and as long as McKinnon stays out of the lineup, Matt Breida is going to be an immense value that you can actually start right out of the gate. So where he's going in drafts, he's a value. RB36, Duke Johnson, and now that Duke Johnson has been traded from the Browns to the Texans, that does increase his fantasy outlook. There's going to be a less crowded backfield between him and Lamar Miller. As we know, Lamar Miller's not a great back, especially at pass catching, and it is a good situation all around, even though that the Texans don't necessarily throw to the running back position all that much. In fact, Deshaun Watson throws to the running back about the least amount compared to other quarterbacks in the league, but they should give him a decent role in the offense, much more so than the Browns gave him an opportunity last season. And if you guys are afraid of Deshaun Watson and not targeting running backs, just keep in mind Cam Newton was also one of the quarterbacks who threw to the running back position the least prior to Christian McCaffrey entering the league. RB37, Tariq Cohen, and over the past 2 seasons, Cohen's averaged 92 carries and 81 targets per season, and those were both years where Jordan Howard was given 250 plus carries on the ground. So it was more Jordan Howard rushing the ball on the ground, Tariq Cohen for the passing game. Well, this season, it's not so much going to work out that way. They have David Montgomery, who is a capable pass catcher, along with Mike Davis, who also is no slouch in that area as well. So for that, both of those are going to eat into his production potentially, and that's production that he really needs, being just a scat back, an undersized one at that. So for those reasons, we really can't recommend drafting him. We have him much lower in the rankings, much lower than he's going to fall in your drafts. So for that, we likely won't have any shares. He's not necessarily in a void, but he's also not a player you should target. And now we're bouncing to a player we actually would like you guys to target. And don't get us wrong, we've said our fair share of negative things about Carlos Hyde as an actual talent. And while those things are true, it does not matter how bad of a running back or how good of a running back he is, because he's going to be on what should be an excellent offense, one of the best in the NFL. And for that, that's going to have value. Right now, we know Damian Williams is dealing with his share of injuries. And that just means the next man up is likely going to be Carlos Hyde. And for that reason, you have to target him late in drafts. I just wouldn't recommend owning him if you already have Damian Williams, because you're just really limiting your team's overall upside. another avoid, and that is Derrius Guice. And we haven't seen much of Guice since his ACL injury last season, so we have no idea how he's going to look 100%. But one thing is for sure, there has been enough time for him to recover from this injury. He should be ready to go in week 1, and although he didn't suffer any setbacks during his rehab time, at least none that we had heard, ultimately we need to see how he looks before we're going to know what to do with him. As it stands right now, we can't recommend drafting him simply because he's not going to be used so much in the receiving game. That role is going to be used by Chris Thompson, and since most leagues are PPR leagues at this point, we just have to fade that because some of his early down work and goal line work is going to be taken from Adrian Peterson. You have to expect somewhat of a split, and with the limited passing down work on what's already going to be a bad offense, it's just a recipe for a lack of upside and a lack of floor. Before we get into the final running backs, just make sure that you guys are aware that these rankings do change. If you want access to all of our rankings updated for the whole offseason, become a member on our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Membership benefits span far through the rankings. You're getting risk ratings, access to our private communities, machine learning model predictions that are picking the spreads, over, under, and game winners, but there are even more benefits. And if you want to know all of the benefits, go to our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, and consider becoming a member today. Running back 40 is Jordan Howard, and as we know, he's only going to be getting his work on the ground, which is why we really can't recommend drafting him in the 7th round. He's not going to see anywhere near the 250 carries that he's had in his first 3 seasons. And with Miles Sanders on the roster, we can't really believe that he is going to be used much in the passing game. Yes, he should be used by the goal line, but we said should be, and while this is a good offense, there's no guarantee he's going to own that role either. The only way this pick really pays off is if somebody else gets hurt, so for that, he's an avoid from us. A lot of the same reasons why we're fading Guice is the same reasons why we're fading Adrian Peterson, except he's not coming off of an ACL tear. He is old though, and old backs do come with their fair share of risks. He did show that he was capable when the offensive line was good, and he was getting all the touches, but he's just not going to be in that situation again this year without an injury to Guice. 42, Damian Harrison. This is one of our favorite late round picks, but people are starting to wisen up on him. Everyone's talking about Gurley's knee injuries. Nobody's talking about Sony Michel's injuries, and Sony Michel is still a mid-round pick for most people. If you were smart, it's better to take the back that costs the least in this New England offense, and the back that's cost the least in the New England offense has typically paid off dividends for anybody drafting him. So Damian Harris makes a great pick. He's more talented than people give him credit for, so if you target him in the late rounds and have him on your teams, we would definitely recommend that selection. 43 is Ronald Jones, and he's 21 years old last season as he entered the NFL. He really did not get an opportunity, even though it looked like it was all his. But guys, we did not fully see what he was capable of. He only got 23 carries, granted for 44 yards and a single touchdown, but that's the thing. He did not get an opportunity, so we don't know what to expect from him. With Peyton Barber, we do know what to expect. We've seen what he can do. Tampa Bay did nothing to bring in more running backs to take potential carries from him. They brought in no one in free agency outside of Andre Ellington, who's more specifically a pass catcher. So all signs point to Ronald Jones getting his share of touches this year, and for his current draft price, we can't argue it. It's really a great pick. So for that, he's definitely a target from us. Number 44, Justice Hill, and he makes a great target in the late rounds because the Ravens, they're run-first team. Mark Ingram has dealt with his fair share of injuries in his past, and he's a guy that can actually catch the football. So he's a multifaceted back for this backfield. Mobile quarterbacks do assist running backs in being more efficient. Gus Edwards was able to average 5.2 yards per carry last season in the same offensive scheme. But this is a crowded backfield. You're just taking a shot on a potential injury to skyrocket his value. But then again, in this stage of the draft, that's what we're drafting most of these guys for. Kalen Ballage is the next running back at 45. And whilst a lot of people might see him as a great late round pick, it's just really not the pick for us because right now you're drafting him after the hype in the offseason where it says he's getting first team snaps. All that's going to do is rise his ADP. At best, it's going to be a 50-50 split, and you know Drake's going to get the work in the receiving game, which is the most valuable of the two. Drake's also the most talented back in this backfield, and it's going to be one of the offenses that is one of the worst in the entire league. So the running back behind the single worst offensive line on a team unlikely to score, who's not going to be getting much work in the passing game, it just does not seem like the amount of upside we're looking for when we're talking about late round picks. Running back 46 is Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys, and he makes a great late round pick because right now Zeke is up in the air with his contract situation, but If Zeke does sign, that's going to completely debilitate his fantasy value. But regardless, the word from training camp is actually really good on him. They want to use him in a Kamara / Tariq Cohen role. That's the word on the street. Can we believe that? It's probably just hype just to make light of the whole Ezekiel Elliott situation. But take it for what it is. He is going to be the next man up in this Dallas Cowboys offense at the running back position, which has immense value. Running back 47 is Royce Freeman. It looked like he was going to be getting his opportunity to potentially overtake Lindsay this year if everything went his way. Well, at this point, it's just becoming more crowded of a backfield because Theo Riddick is there. It's going to keep Phillip Lindsay's legs fresh, also avoid too many touches for Phillip Lindsay, which is going to decrease his chance of injury, which an injury is what you would really want. Not necessarily want, that's probably a bad way to put it, but an injury is what would have boosted Royce Freeman into being one of the fantasy elite. At this point, it's nothing more than an early down rusher, short yardage rusher that's going to get some goal line work on an offense that's not expected to do much. Running back 48, Justin Jackson, and he is a super sleeper this year. I'd be very surprised if they refuse to pay Gordon, but at this point, who really knows? Justin Jackson did perform well when given the opportunity last season. He proved to be a reliable pass catcher as well as a good rusher, so if it does come down to it and his numbers called, we can count on him to perform. So for that, he's a sleeper. Just keep in mind his value is directly tied to the Melvin Gordon contract situation. One of my personal favorite late round picks, it's Chase Edmonds of the Arizona Cardinals, and it all comes down to volume. This offense is going to have a lot of volume, and you can't just give David Johnson all the carries. Yes, he's going to get his, but someone else is going to have to spell carries, and it very well may be, and is likely to be, Chase Edmonds. Now, Chase Edmonds hasn't proven to be all that good as a rusher, but opportunity always over ability, and if anything happens to David Johnson, he would be in line for a hefty workload. So for that, he hits on all the marks you look for in a late round target. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. If you really did enjoy, please hit the like button. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, and if you want access to the updated rankings, go to our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, and stay updated. While you're here, click on one of the videos you see on your screen. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.